All right, let's turn our attention to the jumps then, and to some horses that Andrew has picked out for you. It's always exciting this time of year. You've spread them around a little. You've tried to, well, you've thrown in one UK horse, which is good, but different trainers as well. How far out were these on your radar? Is it sort of, do you get middle of last season and go, that's a horse for next year, or are you looking around at the middle of the summer for these?
Yeah, a little bit of both, to be honest. I suppose you're looking during the summer at horses that have ran in bumpers, potentially novice hurdles last year, and what they could potentially achieve this season. And I think 3 of my 4 have come from the bumper field last year. One will be kind of high on the list of plenty, I'm sure, going into potentially Cheltenham Festival anti-post markets. 1 or 2 certainly won't be going down that type of route, but should be able to pay their way. Is
that the first one?
Yeah.
Go on, take it away.
Well, the first one is Dr. Demanil for Willie Mullins. Won his bumper down in Mallow, and he was so impressive this day. He was well backed, kind of tanked through the race, 2 mile 3 furlong bumper. He's up against a pretty good yardstick called The Devil You Know, who's the other horse in blue and yellow there, who ends up coming second. Jack the Lad back in third, but it's just the way he goes and puts the race to bed. Ends up winning by 11 lengths. He posted a big figure here. And it's just, I know it's a very small sample size over the last couple of years, Tom, but we've began to see a little bit of a growing trend with Willie Mullins, that not necessarily his best bumper horse will go and run in the champion bumper. You look at the likes of Ballyburn, Kopek de Boer, Dysart Dynamo in the last 3 or 4 years. None of them went and ran in a Cheltenham bumper. And I just look at the champion bumper, and Bambino Fever was excellent. She might go down the mare's novice route. Is it the greatest form? It doesn't look it to me on face value. And you've got a horse here that's won a Cork bumper in the middle of April, might be flying a little bit below the radar, and certainly is one that may be onside for the 2.5 mile race, or maybe even the 3 mile race come March.
Okay, so what do you expect? Because it's interesting, it's a 2 mile 3 bumper. I don't know how much you read into that re-distance, or whether it was just that opportunity for that horse to fit into that bumper spot, if you know what I mean. But you think he's a middle distance?
I do think so. But that being said, Willie Mullins always kind of adopts, I think, if they're good enough, they'll be able to win a bumper, or whether it be a maiden hurdle over 2 miles, 2.5 miles. It really won't matter. I remember Appreciated won the 2.5 mile bumper at Leopardstown over Christmas, ended up winning a Supreme the next season. So it's not necessarily what you'd, it doesn't necessarily go into B that easily, but he looked like a strong galloping horse. Not sure he's got that push button acceleration, so would be a shock to me if he wasn't running over 2.5 miles come the end of the season. Okay,
yeah, and no, where do you think he'll just start off in a modest enough contest, you reckon, and take it from there?
Exactly. Willie Mullins' best bumper horses usually come out around kind of Fairyhouse Punchestown time, whether that be kind of mid-November, early December, and then it's on to Christmas time, on to Dublin Racing Festivals, and on to Cheltenham. It really, you see with Mullins, he can kind of do it any which way. He can start them off at Christmas time, he can start them off in February. They still managed to get to Cheltenham in pretty good shape.
Do you think we used to have a better, even sort of, I don't know, within the last decade, a better handle on the at this time of year on the best Mullins novice hurdlers than we do now? And I'm not necessarily talking about as you go up in trip, but certainly the sharper ones, if you see. I feel like the anti-post Supreme horse doesn't always come to fruition like there was that golden period where it felt like it did. Yeah, is that fair? And I wonder if that's a numbers thing.
It is probably a numbers thing, to be honest, and just the sheer amount of bumper winners he has, and the amount of horses he has coming over from France. I suppose we've seen a little bit less so in the last couple of years, those potential unknown horses that come over from France that everyone seemingly had heard of before, the kind of the news bulletin drops on you. The likes of Duvan, Min, Vittori, all came over with such tall reputations, and were kind of all automatically in at almost the top of the market for a Supreme, and we hadn't even seen them, over in Ireland. So it's been more coming from bumpers in the last couple of years, I suppose, but it just seems at the moment that there's a little bit of a trend beginning to build. As I say, very small sample size, but they don't necessarily have to be running in those Grade 1 bumpers for Mullins to potentially end up being the top Grade 1 novice hurdler for the following season.
Well, this horse by and large twice the price of, say, for a top level novice hurdlers as Bambino Fever, for example, which is what Andrew was getting at. OK, Count of Vendome for Donald McCain, a Catterick bumper winner.
Yeah, very much not where you'd usually potentially be looking for a top-class novice hurdler. I just liked the way this horse went about his business last year, won a Sedgefield bumper, and then Don McCain brought him down to the listed bumper at Cheltenham at the November meeting, which wouldn't be like him, really. He ran a good race in third behind Fortune de Maire, and then he went back up to Catterick. I know it's a Catterick bumper, but you know, winning a bumper under a penalty is not easily done anywhere across the UK, and he beat White Riot in second, who won his bumper next time out. American Empire in third, won his bumper next time out. And as you can see here, you know, he got 2 flicks from Brian Hughes, but it's extremely easy hands and heels work. He was being plotted, I think, to go to the Aintree bumper, and just for one reason or another, I think he got a little bit of a knock the week before that race. I think that might have been a blessing in disguise. Aintree was run on very quick ground this year. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world that he ended up missing that engagement. And Don McCain, as it's been well documented, the last year or two have been a little bit of a struggle for him to find maybe that top-class horse. He's had trouble with his gallop, which I know he's gone and redone this summer. He's put an awful lot of investment in there, and you'd like to hope that he might have 1 or 2 kind of decent Saturday horses that might be able to back that up. And I certainly think this is the type of horse, especially maybe on those northern tracks or up in Scotland, can rack up a bit of a sequence.
Novice hurdler over the 2?
Oh, I think he's a 2-miler, yeah. I think he's got plenty of speed.
When our producer sent me a message saying you picked out St Jumps horses, the only question I had was how many Paul Nolan horses?
Well, I was trying...
Well, just one?
Just the one,
just
yeah.
one.
No, just making sure, you know...
Got to tick that box.
Keeping it fair for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Obviously do have a close kind of affiliation to the yard, and they're very excited by this Rock On By, and you can see why. This is her winning on bumper debut at Galway. It was a kind of bit of a barging match between Patrick Mullins and Conor Smithers on this occasion, but she travelled through the race very, very nicely. She fell in her point-to-point when she looked like she was going to win. That was won by Kingston Queen in the end, who's a listed bumper winner and a Grade 2 third for David Pipe last year. And she's gone on, she's won this back in October time, then got a little bit of a hamstring injury which ruled her out of the mid-season before finishing 5th in the listed bumper at Punchestown. They do highly regard this mare, and when you look over the last couple of years with the likes of Mrs Milner and Feet of a Dancer, they know exactly what they're doing when they've got an above-average mare to go to war with. You'd like to hope she's the type of horse that could very easily pick up a mare's maiden hurdle near the start of the season, and maybe have them dreaming about a horse that can go into some of those graded contests and really show herself up well. I was talking to James Nolan a few weeks ago. He was mentioning, you know, obviously last year was a great year for them. They had a Dublin Racing Festival winner, a Christmas winner, a Cheltenham winner and a Fairyhouse Easter Festival winner. But they are missing that proper graded horse, and obviously for a yard like them, they've had that horse in the past, whether that be latest exhibition, John Call. I'm not saying that this horse is going to necessarily be up to that level, but she might be able to compete in those graded mares novice races. OK, and finally, another horse trained in Ireland with Gordon Elliot. This is Card Counter, who has jumped obstacles and under rules. I feel like harsh saying came up a bit short at Punchestown in a Grade 1, but was 11-1 that day, but well held. What do you like about this horse going into this season? I think he's a very tough horse. I'd be very easy on him for that Punchestown run, pretty quick ground, end of a pretty hard season. He'd had 4 runs within the space of 4 months. All the way up the straight here at Navan, you think he's getting beat, makes an awful hames to the last hurdle. Blue Moss comes to win a race. Butch Cassidy, who was a well-regarded horse at the start of the season, back in 3rd. But he just doesn't want to give it up. He's the type of horse I can see really thriving in kind of soft ground novice chases this year. I don't know how good he is. I suspect realistically he's probably going to come up short at top-class novice level. But I know we're in the middle of September here. I shouldn't be thinking of handicaps come March. But he's
a bit like, the thing is, right, it's not about... That's kind of, you've got to find the way in, right?
He's the type of horse I would, you know, obviously a lot of water under the bridge between now and then, but he's the type of horse I'd love to see in the Irish National as a novice. just the type that will stay all day, based on...
What a shout that could be.
Well, like, imagine that.
Happens from
you know,
now.
if
Love that.
in the middle of April, if that happens, you know, I can walk out of here a proud man. But, you know, as I say, he hasn't jumped a fence in public, you know, under rules thus far. So a huge shout to say, but he's off 137 over hurdles. The plan is to go chasing, and we'll know very early on if he goes and wins a beginner's chase first time out. He's going to have to be campaigned as a graded horse. Wouldn't surprise me if they try to find a couple of tough beginner's chases, you know, where you know it's almost a graded race in all but name. Come second or third in a few of them, and you've got a horse that come the back end of the season, whether that be at Cheltenham, whether it be an Irish national, you know, you could have a really nice horse off a lenient enough mark, maybe in that mid to late 130s.
OK, there's the four. Are you sort of equally excited by all of them, or do you think are you more excited by the ones that might fly under the radar a bit more?
Well, I kind of like to try and find those horses that are going to, you know, win people money throughout the year. Very easy to come on and tell you 4 horses from Willie Mullins that I'm sure will win races, but will go off very short prices. I'd like to hope certainly with Rock On By and Count of Vendome, you've got 2 horses that won't necessarily be on many people's lists. And then for the people that do love that Cheltenham Festival anti-post punt, I suppose Dr. Demanil, you know, it's an awful long way out. People probably screaming at the television having anti-post bets for Cheltenham right at the moment. But if there was one, he's the type of horse for a novice hurdle I might back for the 2.5 mile race.
Do you still major on Ireland or not? Not so much now. You're with us, if you like.
I just don't go to the same level of racing on track I used to do. Like when I was back home, I'd be going racing pretty much every Sunday, whether that be Naas, Punchestown, Navan. You could kind of, all of them were relatively gettable. As a result, you kind of do end up diversifying. I've been to Sandown, plenty more, Kempton, those types of courses. So I think you get a decent, better kind of overall look at things. And I suppose over the last couple of years as well, you've got to be wary that the UK handicapper, for instance, has taken an awful lot into account when it comes to festival races. You can't just have those completely Irish biased goggles on. You've got to kind of look at the bigger picture.
It's helping, I think.
It is, yeah.
The fences.
Yes.
The chase handicaps.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the Grand National, though.
No.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. Stick those in your tracker. The 4 horses from Andrew, Dr. Demanil, Count of Vendome, Rock On By and Card Counter are your 4.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.